out when I walked in on them, and it took me a couple of minutes to even process what I was witnessing. First of all, it was my bedroom that the two of them were going in, and that was the most horrifying part of it. And secondly, they didn't even break apart when they heard the door opening. So I had to walk all the way over to them and make my presence felt for them to snap out of it. I'm pretty sure that they thought that it would be fun to make out in my bedroom, in my house, just for the thrill of it, but they probably didn't count on me having a complete breakdown over it. I'm not proud of it, but knowing that what I had been suspecting for so long was actually true made something snap inside of me. I grabbed a coworker by her hair and started dragging her outside the room, and I was unstoppable from what I was told. James is considerably stronger than me, but he couldn't stop me, and I don't even remember most of it because I think I had a rage blackout. I dragged her downstairs with me with James right behind me, and pushed her into the middle of the room, while everyone was there. I don't remember most of the things that I said, but apparently, I called her a bunch of derogatory names and told everybody what she and James had been getting up to in my bedroom. I didn't even care that my son was right there, and so were a bunch of his friends. Now that I look back on it, it's extremely embarrassing and inappropriate, but at the time, that didn't even occur to me, and I was just screaming at the top of my lungs. My parents, my brother, and my in-laws were also present there, and I think it was my father who finally calmed me down and took me back to my room. Once I was inside my room, I completely broke down and started crying. I was sobbing uncontrollably, but instead of staying with me and comforting me, my dad locked me inside my room and went back out. I guess I should have known instantly that my parents didn't care about me. I had always known that they cared more about appearances than being real, but that was just insane. Nobody came to check up on me for the next couple of hours, and even after I had calmed down considerably, I had no idea what was going on outside. I didn't even have my phone, so I couldn't even ask anyone. It was only after midnight that I was escorted out of the room by my brother, who didn't even ask me how I was doing. They probably would have made me stay in the room for longer if I hadn't started banging on it like a crazy person. When I came out, I asked my brother what had happened after I'd been locked in, and he told me that pretty much everyone cleared out after my breakdown. He also said that James had left with his parents and my son, and the only people in the house at the time for me, my parents and him, and he had let me out of the room so we could discuss what we were going to do about this now. But my family's idea of a discussion meant telling me that I had to apologize to all my guests for the way that I had behaved at the party. And not just that, but I also had to apologize to my in-laws and James for what I did. They told me that he had found it extremely difficult to convince his coworker not to press charges against me because what I had done was an act of physical violence against her. So now, I owed it to him to talk about this and work things through instead of making this a big deal. I freaked out at them and told them to get out of my house because I was not going to allow them to stand under my roof and tell me that I had to apologize to my cheating husband. I got into a huge fight with my family because they were telling me that I owed it to him to make things right and give this marriage a second shot, or else, they would cut ties with me. So I told them to go ahead because I'd reached a point where I couldn't care less about what anybody else thought of me. I was going to file for divorce and get out of this mess, and I didn't need anybody's permission for it. So I contacted a lawyer the very next day and filed for divorce within a week of the incident. James was served soon after, and he actually had the audacity to be disappointed and shocked. He came back home the day that he was served with the divorce papers and demanded an explanation. I told him that there was no way that I was going to take him back after what he had done and the way he had insulted me. We got into a nasty verbal argument where I said a lot of things to him and called him a lot of names, and he ended up promising me that I would never be able to see my son again. But I didn't realize that he would actually ensure that he lived up to his words. Then, the legal battle began. The divorce proceedings were easier and simpler compared to the custody battle since we had very few joint assets to speak of. The house belonged to me and there was no question about it because I had purchased it with my own money. Everything else was going to be sold and the cost would be split between the two of us. We just had to wait for 6 months due to the waiting period in our state, and after that, once we had come to a settlement, the divorce would come through. The only thing that we couldn't agree upon was the alimony that was due because I had to start from scratch since he had forced me to quit my job and I didn't have enough money of my own. He thought that I shouldn't get any alimony at all, but of course, that was not possible since he had told me that he was going to help me and make sure that I never felt the need to work. Thankfully, I had a couple of texts to prove that, or else I might not even have been able to get that alimony. The divorce process was emotionally easier for me to deal with because, in my head, I had already disconnected from James. But the custody battle is what really screwed me up because unfortunately, my parents and my brother decided to stab me in the back for money. My ex-husband and his lawyer were horrible people who started making a case against me for being a terribly careless and psychotic mother to prove that I was not capable enough of handling the task of raising my son on my own. So James and his parents were supposed to have full custody. Now